Hi, my name is Mark Harris. I'm an old-time musician and teacher based in Fort Collins, Colorado. And in this video, I'll be showing you how to play my flat-picked guitar arrangement of the old-time fiddle tune, Ducks on the Millpond. Now, in addition to breaking the tune down phrase by phrase, we'll also be exploring some of the techniques I use on guitar to help evoke the distinctive feel and groove of old-time fiddle and banjo playing. I have a full performance video of this tune available if you'd like to check that out. I'll link that in the description. Also in the description will be included timestamps so you can jump around to different parts of the video, a link to free guitar tablature for this lesson, and also details on how to contact me about booking or teaching. I teach both in person in the Fort Collins area and also online with students from all over, so reach out if you'd like to schedule a lesson. Now, let's begin. I'll start by playing the tune twice through at speed before we go and break it down into its individual phrases. A couple of things to note before we get started. Firstly, for each section of this tune, there's going to be one simple left-hand shape that everything's going to revolve around. For the A part, it's just our open D chord shape. So that's index finger on fret 2 of the 3rd string, that's an A note. Ring finger on fret 3 of the 2nd string, that's a D note. And middle finger on fret 2 of the 1st string, which is an F sharp. And everything we play is going to revolve around that simple shape. And in fact, our index finger and ring finger are going to stay planted the entire time. The only thing that's going to change is our middle finger is going to move around a little bit, and we're going to be using our pinky for a couple of things. And something similar is going to be true for the B part. It'll be a slightly different shape this time. We're going to want to access some higher notes. So in addition to these two, this D and this F sharp note from our original D chord, we're going to play those with different fingers, our middle finger and our index, so that we can reach this high A note up here on the 5th fret of the E string. But we'll go more into that when we get to the B part. Secondly, the approach to picking we're taking in this tune is very simple. In essence, whenever we want to play on the beat, we'll play that as a down. So 1, 2, 3, 4, down, 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 down. If you want to add the offbeats in between, then we'll be playing those as ups. So 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up. And if for some reason we want to play only the offbeats, they would all be ups. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and up, 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 up. So this approach will remain absolutely consistent throughout this tune. If you get lost for any reason, you can also check the tab that I've linked to in the description, and that will have all of the picking included. Let's get into the tune. Here is the first phrase of the A part. Now, as I mentioned before, everything we're doing in this A part is revolving around this open D chord shape. And all I'm doing with my left hand as I play it, this particular phrase, is changing whether my middle finger is on or off. The other two notes are left on throughout so that we get some sustaining notes while we play our melody. Now, we're going to start with a strum on our 4th, 3rd, and 2nd strings all together to begin. Then we're going to play a high E note, open E, and then back to this ring finger D note on the 3rd fret of the B string. After that, we're going to bring this middle finger back on so that we can play that 2nd fret of the high E string, and then back to our D on the 2nd string again. So far that's again. Finally, we're going to add 2 more notes to complete the phrase. We're going to play an open E string, so bringing our middle finger back off again, and then back on for a 2nd fret F sharp note. Now in terms of picking, because that first strum is a full beat long, that's going to be down and then followed up by another down, because the next note comes on the next downbeat. But through the rest of the phrase, that's going to be down, up, down, up, down, up. So the picking altogether is down, down, up, down, up, down, up. Now, that particular motion, especially going from a down on the high E string to an up on the B string, can be a little bit challenging at first, so take your time. Here's the first phrase of the A part, slowly. 1, 2, 3, 4. And again, 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's move on to the second phrase of the A part. It sounds like this. It starts by having your full D chord on, including your middle finger, and playing 3rd string, 2nd string, 1st string, 2nd string. And that's going to be down, up, down, up. Next, we're going to take our middle finger off again with our left hand and play open E, and then back to the D on the 2nd string. Finally, to finish the phrase, we're going to play 4th fret on the 3rd string with our pinky, and then lift off to that index finger that we're already holding on the 2nd fret. Now notice that we're not using our open B string here. Part of the reason for that is so that we can carry on and sustain that D note that we just played. Let's put that phrase together. 1, 2, 3, 4. And again. 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's try playing phrases 1 and 2 of the A part together. 1, 2, 3, 4. And again, 1, 2, 3, 4. Now feel free to pause the video here and practice these until you feel comfortable enough to move on. Let's try the third phrase of the A part. It goes like this. So as you can see, we're starting with the very same thing we began the first phrase with, namely this strum on the fourth, third, and second strings all together for that full first beat. Then, instead of going up to the high E, the open high E, like we did in the first phrase, we're going to go to the third fret on the high E, and we're going to play that with our pinky, this G note, and then come back onto the second string for that D note. So altogether so far it's... Next we get an ornament, starting with our middle finger on the second fret of the E string, plucking it, hammering on with the pinky again, and then pulling off. So that's... And then to round out the phrase, we have two more notes, our open E string, lifting that middle finger off again, and then the D on the second string. So altogether that phrase is... And the picking there is going to be down, down, up, down, down, up. Let's practice that phrase. 1, 2, 3, 4. And again. 1, 2, 3, 4. Great. Let's put the first three phrases of the A part together. 1, 2, 3, 4. And again, 1, 2, 3, 4. To round out the A part, let's try the fourth phrase. Now there are actually two different versions of this phrase. There's a long version and a short version. I'm going to start with the long one. It sounds like this. Now we're going to start back at that fourth fret B note on the G string that we had before, and play B with the pinky off to the index finger that we already have on there, back onto the pinky, and then the D on the second string. Those next two notes are a high E, and then back to that same D again on the second string. And then we're going to finish off that long phrase, the long fourth phrase, with B with the pinky on the third string, and then A with the index finger. So that's... Let's practice that. 1, 2, 3, 4. And again. 2, 3, 4. So I mentioned that's the long version. So the first time through the A part, we're going to play that version, that longer one. The only thing different we have to do the second time around to play the short version is just cut off those final 2 notes. So instead of we get let's practice that phrase, the short version of the 4th phrase. 2, 3, 4. Now we're ready to try the entire A part. I'll play it twice through slowly. First with the long 4th phrase, and then the second time with the short 4th phrase. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now that we've looked at the A part in some detail, let's take a moment to explore some of the techniques that I use to give my playing more of a distinctively old-time sound. One such technique we've already discussed a little bit, and that is keeping some sustained chord tones throughout your melody to give your playing more of a full resonant sound. So in the A part, this was achieved by keeping this index finger and this ring finger planted on those notes from the D chord while we weaved our melody in and out of them. And that helps to give us a kind of wash of sound surrounding our melody that's reminiscent of what you might get with an open-tuned banjo. So that's something we're going to continue to keep in mind as we go forward. But now, moving from the left hand to the right hand, here's something you might like to try. In addition to the standard down, up picking motion, we're going to try adding some lateral motion in there. So instead of just down, up, with the downs, we're going to bring our hand in towards the guitar and make contact with the guitar body. And then lift off with the ups. So I've got that motion coming from my forearm and bringing this part of my hand down in contact with the bridge pins. And when I'm on this high E string, you can hear I also sometimes my knuckles will rap against the top of the guitar. So that's down, up, down, up, down, up. Compare it to. What that's going to do is create a contrast between a more percussive, forceful downstroke and a lighter upstroke, mimicking the way a clawhammer banjo player will get a more percussive, forceful stroke with the fingers on the beat, and then a lighter thumb note on the offbeat. Continuing in this vein, we can add a little bit more drive by making those percussive downstrokes on beats 2 and 4 in particular a little stronger, creating a kind of backbeat pulse. So here it is without 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and here it is with a little bit of extra juice on the 2 and the 4. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and Here's how the A part would sound with those new right hand ideas in the mix. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. A little faster. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So that's how we, it's by using those right hand techniques that we go from something that sounds like this to now that can take a little bit of practice, especially working up the accuracy so that you're hitting just the strings that you want to when you have this wider movement going on. But take it slowly, work it up gradually, and with practice it gets a lot easier. So try out these techniques. I think you'll find they'll help your flat picking sound a little more at home in an old-time context. Now for the B part. I'll teach you here the basic version of what I'm playing. If you stick around to the end of the video, I'll show you one trick that'll let you take the exact same part and really spice it up and add some more depth to it. The hand position, as I mentioned before, is going to involve the same D and F sharp we had from our open D chord, except now we're going to play it with our middle finger and our index finger, so that we can reach this 5th fret A note on the E string. So everything really is going to revolve around these 3 notes. Let's try the first phrase. It's going to sound like this. So we're going to start with the D and F sharp I mentioned previously, played together, and then hammering on to the 5th fret with the pinky. Followed by leaving all of those fingers on second string, 1st string, 2nd string. So D, A, D. And then to finish off that phrase, open E, and then our D and F sharp together again, and then 5th fret A note. So that first phrase all together. Let's practice it. 1, 2, 3, 4. And again. 1, 2, 3, 4. One thing you may have noticed there is it's really the notes in that phrase, it's the notes on the high E string that I'm getting to really pop out more than the notes on the 2nd string. These D notes that I keep coming back to are really acting more as drones, sustained notes that support the melody rather than the melody itself. So here's the second phrase of the B part. We're going to be starting on that D on our 2nd string, playing open E after that, and then 2nd fret F sharp on the high E string. And then back to our D on the 2nd string. So that's the Frere Jacques melody. And to finish out this phrase, we'll be playing open high E, and then back to the D again. Now the melody here is moving back onto that D. So the last couple of Ds there really are functioning as melody notes, but that very first D you can sort of treat as another one of those drones we talked about with the first phrase. Let's practice this phrase. 1, 2, 3, 4. And again. 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's play phrases 1 and 2 of the B part. 1, 2, 3, 4. And again. 1, 2, 3, 4. One tip here is that we want to make sure that very last note of the first phrase is carrying on into the beginning of the second phrase. So we want to make sure we hold down that pinky as long as we can before we need to move it for the second phrase notes. So you can hear that here. Take your time internalizing this before moving on to the next phrase. Now onto the third phrase of the B part. It sounds like this. So, this phrase starts similarly to the first phrase, except instead of hammering on with our pinky, we're going to re-articulate that note. So instead of down, it's going to be down, up. After that, we're going to come back down to this D on our second string. And then we're venturing a little bit out of our nice comfortable position here. We're going to move up to the 7th fret, play the 7th fret of the high E string with our pinky, and slide down to the 5th fret. And then to round out the phrase, we've got F sharp on the 2nd fret of the E string, and then open E, and then back to the D on our 2nd string. A couple of things to keep in mind here. It's okay if that final D before you do the slide is cut off a little bit. It's still helpful to have it there. Also, when we play the slide, and then the next note, that's going to be 2 upstrokes in a row, just so that you're aware. Because the slide starts on an offbeat, and then the end of the slide comes where our downbeat would be, except because it's a slide, we're not going to be hitting that note. And then up for the next note. Let's try playing through the third phrase. 1, 2, 3, 4. And again. 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's try tying together phrases 1, 2, and 3 of the B part. 1, 2, 3, 4. And again. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now on to the last phrase of the tune, the fourth phrase of the B part. The nice thing here is that it's exactly the same as the fourth phrase of the A part. And like before, there's a long and a short version. Both are exactly the same as they were in the A part. There's only two differences. One, because we're in a different hand position, we're going to play those same notes with maybe a different fingering than we did before. In the A part, because we were playing out of this open D position, it made sense to reach out here with our pinky to play the B note. And of course, the finger playing the D note was our ring finger. So it looked like this. Now we're in the B part, and we're coming out of this position. Now it's going to make more sense for us to use our middle finger for that D on the second string and our ring finger for the B on the third. So here's the short version. And here's the long version. The other difference is the positions of these phrases within the tune are switched from what they were in the A part. So now, the first time through the B part, we're actually going to use the short ending, the short fourth phrase. And then the second time through, we're going to be using the long ending phrase. So first time through. And second time through. Another way to think about this is that we use, across both the A and the B, we use the short fourth phrase whenever we're going into a B part, but we use the long fourth phrase whenever we're going into an A part. Now let's put the whole B part together. 1, 2, 3, 4. Short ending. And there's the long ending. Now that we've learned all the phrases of the tune, it's time to put it all together. I'll play the whole tune 3 times slowly. 1, 2, 3, 4. So that's the whole tune. But before I go, earlier I mentioned that there was one trick we could employ to take that very same B part arrangement and spice it up a little and add some extra depth. So that's what we're going to look at now. Here's the advanced version of the B part. Now you may have noticed when I did the full playthrough of this tune earlier, in the B part I was getting a lot of this open D string, and that's something we didn't mention when we discussed our B part arrangement. So it was sounding something like this. So, how am I achieving that? Well, it's not as simple as simply strumming from the 4th string upward, because then we also get that open 3rd string. And that's not really the sound we're going for here. So it'd be nice if we get our open D without our open G. And so the way I'm achieving that is with my middle finger, in addition to fretting this D note on the 2nd string, I'm using the top of the pad of my finger to just muffle the 3rd string. So I'm not pushing it down enough to fret it, but just enough so that it doesn't sound. So here's without the muting, and here's with. Now it can take some experimentation to get the finger placement for that technique just right. There's a balance between getting a nice clean fretted note, but then also reliably muting out the adjacent string. But once you get it, what this means is that we can take that very same B part arrangement that we learned earlier, and then whenever we're doing that drone on that D note on the 2nd string, we can now add in our open D without fear of that pesky 3rd string getting in the way. So I'm using exactly the same arrangement there, just adding an extra note whenever we do the drone. So here's the B part without that low D string. And here's utilizing our left hand muting so that we can get the low D. A couple of things to note there. Firstly, you may have noticed I'm adding in a little extra something that wasn't in our original arrangement. Now that we have that open D string available, at the very end of the 2nd and 4th phrases, where we have a bit of a gap until the beginning of our next phrase, I'm just adding an extra open D in there. So right there. And that's just something we can help ourselves to now that we have this this new note available. Another thing to point out is in that 3rd phrase, after the first few notes, basically once we get to this slide, all of that is just melody. We're not really doing any kind of droning there, so we don't have to worry about our muting technique throughout that whole passage. I'm really only adding it back in right at the end there so that we're ready to begin the next phrase. So once you get the hang of this technique, it can become incredibly useful in all kinds of situations for filling out chords and adding extra drone notes where otherwise you wouldn't have been able to have them. So I hope you have fun with it and find some good uses for it. Thank you for watching this lesson video on my guitar version of Ducks on the Millpond. I hope you've enjoyed working on this tune, and if you have any questions, please leave them in the comments. Keep in mind as well that some of the technical ideas that we've worked on in this lesson, such as the importance of drones, using a percussive right-hand attack, and creating a backbeat pulse, can be usefully applied to many other tunes in this style, and I hope they'll be useful in giving your flat picking more of an old-time flavor in general. Finally, as I mentioned in the introduction, I'm available for both in-person and online instruction, so reach out if you'd like to know more. Thanks.